Assalamualaikum. Welcome to Member Spotlight by Allied Muslim Chamber of Business. MCOB is a membership-based social enterprise with a mission to create a thriving Muslim business community. It's the power of collective wisdom, continued learning, and thought leadership brought together for Muslims by Muslims. Our core belief is that business leaders thrive when they have access to a supportive community of peers who challenge and inspire each other. Today, we have with us our member, Faruk Bhagani. Farooq is the co-founder of Menasa BD. He is spearheading warm reference for Tier 1 offshore boutique technology providers, enabling their entry into the North American market. Welcome, Farooq.
Thank you, Zubair. Assalamu alaikum to you and to the audience. Thanks for having me on today.
All right, thanks for being here. Would love to learn more about you and how you got to where you are today. So, if you can share your journey with us.
Absolutely. Well, I'll give you a little background on me. So I was born in Pakistan, raised in Canada and the US. So have a lot of affiliation. Was one of the fortunate ones who kept attached to the culture and kept the language. And then I spent almost 20 years in Dubai. So the culmination of my journey was starting off as a seller. When I grew up here, I went to college, did lots of odd selling jobs, and realized I really enjoyed this, and then grew it into a career. Uh, the bulk of my career was spent working with large Fortune 100 software enterprise companies. I worked with IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, Salesforce, and recently ended my career on the corporate side with Accenture. So through my years and my journey of selling in the enterprise world, I learned quickly, especially during my time in Dubai, that Pakistan has a very strong and nascent community of software services. And I found one of the bigger challenges that Pakistani companies would face in the United States is their ability to translate into the enterprise. So that's where the inception of Menasa came around. I was asked by people to help them and coach them. And so essentially now what I do, Kashif, is I just help smaller companies, typically boutiques that are, in the early seven figures, couple of hundred people. They're good at what they do, but they were very dependent on inbound lead flow, which stopped a couple of years ago because of the market situation. And now I help them with warm referrals. So I go through my networks. I try to reach out to other Muslims, Pakistanis, people who I feel would be a little more open to talking to folks from Pakistan. And that's the model. So today we have 12 partners. We've been running for a couple of years. And inshallah, we hope to continue building on the success we've had to date.
All right, sounds good. So, share with us a little bit more about in depth of what Menasa BD is. What do you guys do?
Sure. So a day in the life of my environment is we started essentially with two companies, and these are companies that were pre-identified. I have a partner in this venture. His name is Taha Anis. He's based out of Southeast Asia, and essentially we leveraged between his network of potential services companies.
Okay.
They said, "Look, we need help. Farouk, we're trying to sell in the U.S." Interestingly, the founder of the company was based in Canada, and I can even share his company name. It's Ascend Analytics, and essentially he said, "Look, I have had a lot of success in the data analytics and governance world. I need to now extend, and I want to continue building in North America." So the first point of intersection was, okay, now you become my client. So I work with him on a fractional basis, so I don't work full time, but you can think of me as someone who's going to give him credibility and warm leads. And what I did is I started introducing him into my networks. And there was a person in my network who was a smaller system integrator. So he did smaller projects here in the Houston area. He met Sajid. He was very happy with what he saw. They formulated a plan to work together, and they went and then they knocked down a $350,000 project. So we saw that success, and then we said, "Oh, this is great. This is working." And then the word started getting out. We started talking to other people. I went to Pakistan. I did a couple of road shows. I shared my journey and what I did. And we, in the process, started picking up clients and ended up in a situation now where we have these 12 distinct partners, and I work with all of them on a fractional basis. I put them in a swim lane. So what's really important is a lot of Pakistani companies come and say, hey, we can do everything. And in the United States, when you say that, means you can do nothing. so, so, so what we tell people is, look, what do you do really well? So we do a little coaching and guidance on your go-to-market strategy, how to present yourself, what's the best way to engage with people here? How do you build trust, right? Which is very important. And those are the types of activities I do on a daily basis here at Menasa. It's culminated in 7 figures of billing over the last 18 months, which has been very productive. I have learned very quickly that there are certain people that fit this model and there are certain people who don't, right? And what we're learning quickly is that the Pakistani companies that I work with particularly are usually very technically astute, but they're very, very weak on the sales and the sales motion, right? And how that works in North America. So there's a lot of coaching going on there and trying to help people understand this culture and how to engage and build relationships here, right? So you can get work done, because a lot of the work we're doing from Pakistan is very commoditized, right? So we're not bleeding edge. Hey, we're the only ones doing this. It's like, these are tech stacks that have been around for a while, and a lot of people are outsourcing these tech stacks because it's cheaper to do them offshore, and you can still get that quality of capability. We all know that India owns this, so we're basically a fly on the wall, but there's enough business to be had, in my opinion, and if we focus and target correctly, we can get it.
Would you share something about the quality of the work coming out of Pakistan compared to other countries, like you mentioned India and other countries that are in the game?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kashif, there's, like any environment, you have top, middle, bottom. There's a stack, right? Just like anywhere else. In Pakistan, I try to focus working only with top tier companies, right? That have, and there's a formula that I've found that typically works with these companies that makes them top tier. Interestingly, they're usually Western educated, right, in terms of their background. And that too, very, very highly educated, right? So Ivy Leaguers and things like that. The other thing I've found is that people who have implemented and done multiple projects in North America already on an offshore stream, right? So they're used to working with this environment. They know how to engage and how to build. And last but not least is the ones who've invested a little bit of time and energy in the selling capability, right? So that's something that's, I find, a lot of Pakistani companies have really strong technical capability, but they just don't know how to sell. They don't know how to engage, build relationships, so on and so forth. The ones who've done that in the past are the ones that usually are the most successful with me.
All right. So so right now you mentioned that you have 12 partners. Are these like the companies that you are working with?
Absolutely. So I call them my partners because that's who I'm representing.
All right. And what are the main issues that these companies were facing before they started working with you, and how successful you were in generating more business for them?
Absolutely. So in some cases, I'm going to give you best, middle, worst, right? So best case scenario started with a company, and I think I'm going to mention Ascend again because they really, there was a real selling persona built in to the founder, right? He really gets and understands the chase and how to build and how to develop. And it was really easy to plug him into my network because he would be able to quickly identify if there's an opportunity or not. And if there is, how do I build the relationship to a point where they'll want to give me the business? So he was really, really effective at that. And that I find to be the most challenging piece of working with a lot of my partners. So the middle case partner, I would say, would be someone who really understands this ecosystem, but they've had a little bit of a challenge because they've flipped channels a bit, right? They started in one arena, they moved to another, and now they're in another. So it's establishing capability for yourself comes, and in the US market, as we all know, the specialization is huge, right? Especially in the tech services world. You've got to be that expert who knows that stack and that environment. The icing on the cake is you're going to get that business if you're cost effective and know how to engage here, right? That's the whole premise of how the offshore piece works. The worst case scenarios are companies that have built up, a team and they know a few processes and they know how to do them. They're very, very cost efficient, but zero customer facing capability. They just don't know how to engage or manage with a customer here. They just feel like I have a commodity here. You want it or don't want it. It's a very shopkeeper situation, right? So those are that's the spectrum that you typically see from Pakistan. I'm sure, and I've seen it. It's no different in India, but
Uh-huh.
the bigger difference that I've seen with the other offshore environments, I've seen with our Pakistani environments, there's sometimes a big trust gap, right? And that's hard to breach, right? If there's no trust and there's a trust deficit, you've got to work really hard to build on that. And people typically don't want to try to do that, right? So either you're established or you're not, or you have a mindset that, yeah, hey, I'm open to this and I'll give this a chance,
Mhm.
right? Because of that. So those are some common trends that I see that are hard to overcome. Most of my success has come from best and middle, right? Who've either, been able to go in, close deals, get it done,
Mhm.
or people in middle who are really building up a strong pipeline, right? Investing and coming and engaging and building relationships here with the people that I've plugged them into.
Okay. Are there any specific technologies that you focus on?
I have a full suite, right? So I work with data analytics and architecture. I work with RPA solutions. I work with specialized data management and data governance solutions. I work with, in some cases, smaller ERP capabilities. So I have people, they come in, they tell me what they're really good at. For
Mhm.
example, so I'll give you an example. We have a partner who's in the RPA world and says, hey, I work very effectively with UiPath and the Microsoft Power Automate platform, right? And I have a team and a structure. And so, okay, when we decide, okay, then we go to the next level and we say, is there a specific industry set that you work in, right? And then we try to identify and match them into that industry set. That's an example of something I would do for them.
Okay.
In another case, we have people now. There's a big push in the AI space, right? So we're seeing people AI this, AI that. So I have somebody who does a very strong talent management solution in the AI space and has started making inroads into some very, very large, I would say, business platforms, right? So, and if he gets in, that's going to be a game changer for him, right? So those are the types of folks we have, and like I said, if people are really interested and want to learn more, then I've got a one pager that I can share with them, and they'll see all the partners and their specialties.
Okay. So right now you are working I believe, only with the people out of Pakistan, the companies that are in Pakistan. But I see that the service that you are providing can be very well used by the companies over here in the US and Canada.
Yeah, so let me quantify. So the mission started with wanting to help these Pakistani companies
Hmm.
access Canada and the US, right? So I now have a client that's from Argentina. I have a client that's Romanian. So I will work with different companies from different environments if
Hmm.
I feel there's a fit and a mix for them in the US. All of the business that's being procured is
Hmm.
being procured in the US and Canada. So it's not, and
Yeah.
in addition to that, I have had approaches from local companies. So
Hmm.
US based tech services companies, Canadian based tech services companies, if they're interested and they're based here,
Hmm.
it's in their advantage actually, right? It's a little easier because they can be considered a local company.
Yes.
But I think the problem we run into again is they have to have an area of specialization that makes sense, right? For what we're doing, for what I can do for them, right? And that's typically in the enterprise.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because the companies over here, and we run through the peer advisory groups for all these business owners. Number one thing is sales.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone struggles with.
I get that. I get that totally.
From that perspective, also would like to pick your brain here a little bit. When you look at the sales organization, if you have to define a sales pattern,
Hmm.
how would you define it for an organization, just for our audience as an education for them?
Yeah. I mean, are you talking about a structure internally in the company?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Look, so what predicates a lot of this is the size of your company,
Mhm.
right? And a lot of, like you or me, when it's founder driven, guess who's the first sales guy? The
Yes.
founder, right? So as you grow though, and you want to build efficacy in a sales organization, I tell people the way to kind of invest and build in a sales org is the one I've seen is probably the most effective is if you have a certain past process and pattern that you want to use, and you don't want to get too textbook, right? There's a lot of training that can be done and things like that, but that typically works better in larger organizations. On the
Mhm.
root level, I've seen that if you're a founder and let's say you're sub 5 million in terms of revenue, right? And you really want to start growing stuff, I would say you invest in a couple of younger folks, right? Who you kind of go through a screening process. And there's some good ones, you know it better than me, is the predictive index, right?
Mhm.
That's a great tool set to use. And then, evaluating the persona and personality, bringing those people in and attaching them to
Mhm.
yourself. It's very important, right? So they start to understand and imbibe what values you want to present out to the market. What is your value proposition? How do you want to be engaged accordingly, right? But
Uh-huh.
also have a good work ethic, and that's something I'm really challenged with in today's environment. Is people, it's hard to find people who want to put the grind in and then can take the no's, because there's 100 no's before one yes, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the unfortunate reality, right?
Mhm.
So I would tell people sub 5 million, don't just invest in like, oh, I need an architect, or I need to think about your overall process and where you're trying to get to, right? And then start investing in that. The other thing is I exercise, and it's just I don't know if it's a cultural thing or what, but I've seen that there's a lot of mistrust for sellers, right?
Okay.
And you have to be comfortable in knowing that a seller persona and a good seller has to be a certain way. You have to be a little chameleon,
Mhm.
right? You can't be overly controversial about things. You can be opinionated, but not controversial. So you have to be willing to spend time and energy to deal with that, right? Because
Okay.
it's not the perfect persona to deal with. It can be hard, especially if you're a very process oriented person, right?
Uh,
So I tell people that, look, you've got to be patient with this, and you're not going to turn things around immediately. You're very lucky if you do, right? But you got to invest in this like a line of business, like anybody. And all of the larger software companies I've ever worked for,
Mhm.
sales is just a very tumultuous environment, right? There's a lot of turnover. There's people coming and going. Sometimes you hit a vein of success, sometimes you don't, right? So you got to be used to the ups and downs. And if you're working with people who are used to that environment, what people don't typically do is look at that person, and I see this all the time, is you're not doing anything. How do you know that? you know, I mean, maybe I'm really putting my head into something and it's not coming the way we want it to. So
Mhm.
it's not binary, right? I can't just say ding and this is going to happen, right? Sometimes it's a process, right?
Yep.
And by the way, what I tell people also that is, if it was that easy and that capable, why would I do it for you? I just do it for myself.
Yep.
That's another thing. So those are perspectives I tell people to think about when you're looking at it. But bottom line is, if you don't invest in sales and you don't focus on this, you're never going to grow. And every large company that I've seen in this country that I've worked for, technology based, services based, they've
Mhm.
been successful because they have a really strong sales methodology. They figured it out. They make sure they build that into their environments. I would say one of the most successful ones, in my opinion, because I worked there and I saw it, was Salesforce. Just
Yes.
an amazing selling culture, right? really knew how to build and flourish. And it's changed a little because it's become a big company now, but it's still, the principles still apply.
Okay, sounds good. So we have talked a lot about work and stuff. If you want to share a little bit about your personal side, what are your hobbies and interests? So more people get to know you more.
Sure, absolutely. Well, one of my favorite hobbies, which I've roped you into, as you know, is community building.
Yeah.
So I love to get involved with community-based events. I'll put a plug in for Open here,
Mhm.
something that you helped me with in Southern California. So that's something that I would say my family and a lot of my friends say my hobby is connecting and meeting people, and that is something I really enjoy doing. I like learning about people and learning about new things. On a personal note, like this T-shirt, I'm being a little gratuitous here. I went to the University of Houston,
Yeah.
Final Four, games on Saturday, so we're hoping for the best for the basketball fans out there.
Mhm.
Um, we recently, I came into Houston and we built a Pakistani-based alumni organization, right? And we were able to raise $250,000 in scholarships for needy people in the area. So these are things that I love to do all day long.
Mhm.
On the other side, I like to scuba dive. I like to play cards, and I'm always up for a great chat on global economics and political stuff. So that's a little bit about me.
All right, sounds good. And you forgot cigars over there.
Oh yes, yeah, I was going to say my vice.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Farooq, for being here today and being a member with MCOB. Really appreciate your participation and all the things that you do for the community.
Oh, my pleasure, Kashif, and thank you for building this organization, which is a great, strong way to build us on a faith base, bring us together. I've enjoyed being part of this and learning what I've learned from you and the teams.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.